right, folks, we're back. It's episode 161. No, sorry, it's episode 166 on the horizon over here in Japan. It is a nice, cool Saturday morning. Man, I'm just getting everything over. Saturday morning, Friday night for Andres, nice and late over at the Twitch stream. We're bouncing off some new stuff. We're finding out some hiccups in the previous show. So we're here. We made it. We're safe. Okay. Andres, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I'm surprised that we actually keep our schedules together so often. You're always calculating like 12 hours apart. I feel like I've gotten good. I know exactly what time it's in Japan at all times of the day at this point.
It's a new life skill. Well, this week, guys, we're revisiting our final chapter of the Know Your Role series that we decided to try. This week is, of course, support, and definitely the one that we have laid the most groundwork to get to. So we're hoping that you can enjoy this, and we're also going to pair this up with the most recent patch, which will be super abbreviated, and the news about LEGO Bastion event. So first and foremost, we have a few announcements. Let's talk through game night. Andres, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Yes, game night this month coming in the 27th. New patches in, Reapers wrecking havoc. So bring it on. You know, if you guys want to come play with the community, if you guys want to play against the hosts or meet other people that listen to the show and maybe, you know, make a few new friends, add up to the playlist or the list of friends, you know, so you can grow, so you can queue up with some other people, and you can maybe play with some people that are maybe a little bit better or around your level, or some maybe just learning and getting into the game. So maybe if you're a really experienced player, you can pass down that knowledge and show other people how it's done. Anyway, it's a really good time. So everybody come over the 27th, last Friday of this month.
In addition, we have Patreon announcement for our $2.50 supporters at the what we call platinum level and above. If you support us at any level between there and higher, you can get a free coaching session per month with me or Andres through your supporting. And I've done 3 of them this week, and I've got 1 more tomorrow. So I've done 4 coaching sessions this week. It's been crazy popular week for people to get coaching, but all the same, it's been great. Good guys and girls all around wanting to learn the game of Overwatch and different ranks. We're excited. I have my first higher level coaching that I've had in a while this week. So it was interesting because it was an experienced player switching roles, not so much somebody that didn't really know the game. So that was really helpful for them in understanding and digesting certain features when they're switching roles. But again, some of the things come in more mechanically minded and those type of things. So it's really interesting for me to kind of see what I need to do for my game. And I'm sure Andres probably share the same sentiment, is that when we're coaching somebody that's switching roles, that want to learn, we kind of have this mentality too. But even when I'm switching roles to go play with iPlay and some other friends, it takes actually quite a couple games for me to kind of get into that mindset where I'm shifting gears. It's like, okay, so I'm playing DPS and one of our friends drops out of the group. We pick up somebody else. So I got to switch over to support again. So I'm playing super aggressive, and I have this completely different style shift that I have to, you know, mentality change to play support. And so we have a couple wiggle room games where things in just chaos.
No, yeah, to me it's like that sometimes too, especially when I'm going to tank, because it's such a different mentality that you have to have when playing support or DPS. I think that even between switching between those two has a little bit more of things that overlap. But when you're going into tank, for example, it's just a completely different mindset. You're leading the charge. It's about space and positioning more than, you know, quick flicks and quick thinking and those getting that headshot. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, exactly. So we have one more thing here about Patreon. If you guys want to support the show, patreon.com/OmnicLab is the precedent. It is the best way to help us out. Financially, we know you're listening already. By that point, you've listened to a few shows. You're kind of bought into the whole idea of the game, of the show. And we would love to talk more with you. And also, we're going to use this time to ask for some more feedback. We're always wanting to evolve and change our Patreon, and we haven't really done a whole lot of that over the years. And the feedback that we've gotten has been pretty much overwhelming, that they just like what we do. So if there's anything special that we can do, please let us know. If there's some way that we can kind of do more with the coaching sessions or less. We kind of haven't hit critical mass yet. Like, we still have enough time in our months that we can still do these these coaching things. So
Even though it's
there's
picked
not
up a
really a
lot.
big danger of losing out on your opportunity of taking the schedule. It's up to kind of you and us to make the schedule work. And it's been great, honestly. It hasn't been too hard. So if you guys still want to do that, now's the time to jump in on it before things change. Let's talk about some news. Before we talk about the patch, let's talk about one of the cool things that shipped with the patch that we weren't expecting, which is the Lego Bastion or the Bastion's Brick Challenge that will be now from September 17th this week until the end of the month on the 30th. So basically, the event is the typical thing that they said they wanted to do more of when they started the Wave Racer Diva. And they did the Bastet Challenge for Anna, and they did another one, I think, for... Who is the other one, Andres? Baptiste. Baptiste, they did one for him.
Yeah, there's been a couple. This one is really cool because it's actually based on the actual Lego Bastion. If you notice, everything about him has been thought out like so well. Even when he's firing, you can see like the little flame is like that Lego flame that you can actually use when you're playing Legos and building together. So a lot of thought was put into it. It looks so cool. As a person who grew up playing with a ton of Legos, is right up my alley. I definitely went ahead and play the games because I really want this skin. I'm gonna be sporting it from now on.
Yeah, just keep in mind, if you play in game night and you don't have it yet, those games do not count towards your wins. So you need 9 wins to get the skin in quick play, in arcade, or in competitive. I think all of those wrapped up together kind of will give you credit for the things. And I think the first things you get are like sprays, then icons. So it's 3, 6, 9. And then the last would then be 2, 4, 6 hours of watching. And the link in the show notes for today's episode, you can find, or you can just Google Brick Bastion challenge. You can see what list of streamers are on the qualified list. So if you catch their stream, watch it for 2 hours, you get the first tier item reward. They have like these Lego style icons for each player, like hero. So you can get like a Lego head version of Hanzo and a Lego head version of Genji, for example. They're really silly looking, and they're just perfect. They're cute and funny, and they're great. Let's be honest. So those are pretty cool. But this is interesting because usually the events are kind of like, here's a bunch of sprays and like one icon and then one skin. So this time around, they've kind of shifted gears a bit. And they're like, here's a bunch of icons, here's a bunch of sprays. Let's see what what bites, what people go for once they get all the rewards. So that's pretty exciting. All right. So we talked about the patch notes already last time that we got them on PTR, but on the 17th, they shipped. So that is basically all of the stuff that you may be curious about. What is on live right now is the Bastion self-repair change with the resource not to be depleted. There's a little bit more of a recovery time between when you use self-repair and when you can actually fire, so you have to wait a bit longer, about a quarter of a second. You've got the symmetric primary fire change with the width and the DPS lower with the charge rate. You got kind of the same effect of the meter range section with Zarya and her max beam DPS lower. And then you got a few adjustments for Sigma. Explosion damage reduced, and his experimental barrier had a toggle option that wasn't really working weird with hack and all that stuff with Sombra. So now if you hack him, that barrier gets destroyed, or not destroyed, it gets removed. So whatever charge rate you had, it just goes away. And then Accretion has higher damage, and Graviton Flux has a longer cast time wind up before it goes out. I think that's basically it, but Andres wanted to talk a little bit about the workshop updates before we kind of get into talking about supports, because these are interesting.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these changes were expected. If you guys have been following the meta at this point, Symmetra, Zarya have been doing a little bit too much damage. Those have been toned down a little bit. Sigma was doing a ton of damage, so he's toned down just a bit too, but he got damage on his accretion. So I think that the damage kind of got transferred a little bit more from the mindless, or I don't want to say mindless, but a little bit less punishing primary fire. They can fire all the time versus your accretion, which is one of your big cooldowns, right? That's kind of your way to stop a lot of people. And the better you get at that cooldown, the better you do. Now it deals more damage, so even more to capitalize there. So good changes there for me. What gets me really excited though is the workshop updates. This is really cool. New actions in the workshop. One of them is create a dummy bot. A dummy bot is a full player, but it has no human and no AI controlling it. It's basically just a
Character
shell.
model.
Yeah, character model with, everything that a character model has: health, hit points, and like a movement speed, so on. But this is the cool thing. Uh, you can program the dummy bot to do certain actions inside of the workshop. So this is amazing if you want to set up certain scenarios, right? Maybe you're trying to set up training scenarios for a certain hero. You can set up a dummy bot that specifically does what you want him to do. And I haven't dig too far into this, but I'm hoping that you can choose different heroes for dummy bots. You can also choose if you want to use their abilities, if you want to move him in a certain direction, and allow them to like do scenarios, right? So maybe if you're trying to practice your aim with a McCree, you can set up maybe a dummy Farah and a dummy Mercy that are flying in a certain direction, and you only have so much time to kill her before she goes back into cover, right? Or that sort of that's the thing that I'm picturing. Maybe there's some more simple stuff like headshot trading, right? You have almost like a firing range that you can set up with dummy bots. So it's actually the size and the shape of heroes that you'll be going up against. So a lot of possibilities here and very cool stuff because people were sort of doing this already, but they were doing it with AI and they had to do some really weird tricks like making the AI almost glitch so it wouldn't move in certain directions or would
Right.
stay in the spot that they wanted to. So I'm glad that they're adding more functionality to workshop, especially in the realm of practice modes, right? Or way to create almost
Yeah.
training arenas.
They've got like these things and it says where it says new workshop actions. I'm not sure how this necessarily interacts because for example, if I'm in the workshop and I'm trying to create something, right? I can like use these actions to do certain things. But I wonder if these actions can be performed as a reaction to something happening. So for example, in your game mode that you made, when you shoot one of the dummies, the destroy dummy bot action, can you just have that be applied to the dummy? Because that could be interesting because you could just be like spawning in these things, and then when you shoot them, instead of like when the health hits 0, if you just want to tag it and make sure you're hitting shots and you're just practicing the frequency of, tagging different things, it could be really valuable to just have things destroy. And then they have these throttles of start and stop, like moving things around. They have a beam effect. They've got parameters for HUD text. So you can actually change the spectator visibility option when you're defining what the spectators actually can see. And they give you more colors that you can put for text, which is great. And they have in-world text creation. So it's kind of like you just pop up a text box somewhere. You can put that there and kind of float it around. And then again, more colors for color blindness probably helps a lot in visibility. I think they've got the new workshop value. Is it a dummy bot? Like a question, is this dummy bot? That's like very coding language. Um, they've got copy current variables and copy all variables. So that could be really helpful if you like want to set up a bunch of bots. You're like, okay, this thing, I'm going to customize this thing to do this specific thing. And then I'm going to customize this one. So you set up like 4 different styles of bots. Then you can just spawn in a bunch of dummies and then copy all of the elements on this one and apply it to these. And then maybe you have a tank one that you have, and you can just take the tank one and put it on these. So you could also do some super cool stuff with that. So this variable copying thing is actually going to save a ton of time and enable people to make things faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, and you can also export them in CSV format, which is a very common data
Exactly.
format. So it's cool because you're gonna be able to translate them from workshop to workshop. If you create a very cool script for your dummy in one of your workshops, you might be able to export that very easily and then pull it into another workshop mode. So any work that goes into creating very advanced dummies in one mode can be reused for other modes. So again, very very cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. Last thing I actually missed about the Bastion event, real quick, is that through October 1st, if you want to buy the Lego Omnic Bastion set, you can get 20% off of a selection of you get 50% off Lego Bastion right now if you want that particular set. And you get 20% off a selection of other products in the Blizzard Gear Store. So if you buy through Blizzard's Gear Store, you get half price for this if you want it, and 20% off other stuff that's in there. And it looks like the Gibraltar one with Winston and Mercy is one of those elements. There's one with Havana with, I believe, Anna is in there. There is a Hanamura map with the goons stealing stuff and a Gibraltar payload, which is a smaller one. And then there's of course, the really iconic one they released, which is the Diva and the Reinhardt combo. So those are all the ones that look like are in the promotion image on the promotion page. If you're curious as to the streamers, I'll just list these off and we'll go straight into supports. But our broadcasters we have on September 17th through the 30th each day. I'm just going to go day by day. Valkia, 17th. Brick and Nick, 18. Grant, 19. Zonda Lull, 20. Lee Tae-jun, 21. Wanted, Overwatch, 22. Danny Kills with 2 eyes, 23. Laria Mage, 24. I probably butchered that. Yang Bong Tong, 25. DRTH7, that is 26th. And then Patifon, that's a great name, 24. T_Sven, 28. Fenner on the 29th. And Tier 0 Din on the 30th. These streams are really not that long, just for your kind of... in general, some of these streams are between 3 to 8 hours. So some of the streams you may not be able to get all the rewards if you just park it in lurk mode. Some of the streams are only for like 5 hours or something, and some of them are also on alternate time zones that you may not just be able to catch it all. So just check this list out, see what the times are. All the times are listed in Pacific Daylight Time. All right, that's going to do it for me. I'm going to save that in a tab so I can catch some rewards for freebies. And let's get into talking about supports. Andres, talk to us about what we want to go with today for our supports.
Yeah, today we want to round up the discussion on roles, at least to the first 3 episodes that we want to create about these. We might go in deeper into some of these roles and be more specific about them later. But for today, we're focusing on the support category. We did tanks and DPS already. We had really good feedback from those. And again, this one's going to be a little bit more broad strokes, broad brushes, kind of in general, what you want to keep in mind in supports and what composes this role. For starters, we're going to divide the category into 2 main categories. And I'm sure that you guys are very familiar with these names. Main supports and off supports. Out of this 6 or 7 supports that we have right now, we have Mercy, Brigitte, Zenyatta, Ana, we have Baptiste, and who am I forgetting? Lucio?
Moira.
And Moira. 7. So we got 7 supports in the role, and we can subdivide those into main supports and off supports. Now, just like tanks, we don't just want to tell you, hey, this support is going to be Bane and this support is going to be off. Our goal here is to make you understand what makes those supports main or off support, and more importantly, can those roles even change? Can a main support be considered an off support in certain scenarios and vice versa? And in fact, the answer is yes, hint, hint. But we'll go into that in just 1 second. Let's talk about main supports, Rob. When you think about a main support, what comes to your mind?
The first thing that comes to mind with the main support is this support can sustain 5 other targets by themselves without much help besides defensive positioning. Okay, so that means that
so a huge amount of healing power.
Yeah, if it comes down to it and your other healer isn't healing or isn't using the healing function, is using a different function, aka utility or some other function that they're trying to do, maybe an offensive pressure attacking, that the other support, the second support, can actually just output and keep everyone up. Like they have enough sustainability to do that in a high stress situation without dying and people going down.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. To me, main support is the characters that is going to be in charge mainly of the healing. Out of all of the characters in the entire roster, Your main support's main concern is applying healing to the team as much as they can and keeping everyone healthy as much as possible. In order to do this, you require a hero that is very good at pumping out heals. There's some heroes in the support category that fit this criteria. For example, Anna, Moira. We can have Mercy in there in certain times. Baptiste. These are heroes that can have a tremendous healing output, right? Especially heroes like Anna. The better you get, the more healing that you can put out there to an insane amount. Moira, right now in the meta, is basically all she brings to the table: an insane amount of healing to keep everyone alive through an insane amount of damage, and some damage here and there. Is mostly kind of like spam damage that she deals. It can be effective at taking out heroes, but for the most part, you're bringing her for the amount of healings that she's bringing to the team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The other caveat that we're going to put in here is that we're probably at some points we might be mentioning certain things that are happening currently. So if you're backlog listening to this right now, or maybe you're listening to this immediately, the meta in which we're talking about is as of September the 20th, 2019. Okay, so like if you're backlogging this, keep in mind this is what's happening right now. But Andres and I are trying to future-proof this a bit
Nice.
by
You're
talking about
definitely
this in more
future
of the
proofing
theory.
here.
Exactly. So even though Andres right now is mentioning Mercy as a capable solo healer or a capable main healer, at this current moment, we would not label her as that, but she has the capability of doing that. And I would even venture to say, given how drastic some of the changes we've seen with Brigitte, she may shift into that role too if we get even larger numbers and larger changes to Inspire and certain things. Because as long as they're tweaking these numbers and you're in an environment where you're able to get a sizable amount of healing, these heroes can take over that role and they don't have to worry about their second support healing them. So a lot of this also has the side element of self-sustain and patch numbers of how much healing output they actually have. And there is kind of a fine line where they're on that. And Mercy right now is on the underline of that. She's kind of just below the bar of what we were looking for in a main healer.
Yeah, and we'll talk about how a healer can change between main healer and off healer, and how meta can sometimes affect that balance, and what you consider a main healer. But for now, let's finish defining the other
Yeah.
part of healer. So we said that main healers is the person that is concerned with a healer with a healing, right? He's basically there to heal. That is his main role. If he does anything else, is because there's literally nothing to heal. But if anyone's lacking some damage or is lacking some health, that's basically them going to aid them. Now we have our off healers. Off healers, compared to main healers, are concerned with healing as well, and they're providing that as much as they can. But to the off healers, they're also bringing tools that maybe the main healers do not have. Bringing tools that can help you win very specific situations, maybe niche situation or something that you're trying to counter specifically, and can bring some utility to the team that is not necessarily just healing. So off healers can be something like Lucio or Zenyatta, right? That you can be bringing them for their speed boost. You can be bringing them for the damage and the Discord orb that Zenyatta provides. Maybe their ultimates are very necessary, right? You're going up against a Genji or a Graviton, and you need to survive a huge burst of damage for a few seconds. Those are ultimates that you can bring and rely on and use as a toolkit, other than healing, right? And those heroes also heal, and they're concerned with healing as well, but they're also brought for a secondary reason, or they also brought for their toolkits and not just for their healing.
Exactly. So the off support role is the one that is kind of actually the more true support by terms of the definition of support, right? The primary support or the main support's function is healing. Well, the secondary or the off support is function is supporting the team, right? Doing something that helps a specific purpose for your team to do it. Lucio, speed, mobility, moving people around, higher damage margins for jumping onto something, like closing gaps, spacing out, running away as a team, not just as an individual. For example, Brigitte's kit is very defensive minded, very much like Brawly, trying to get your team more durable, having your team have these threats where at any moment they can lock somebody down and they won't move and they're dead. So she's very much a defensive protector kind of bodyguard type style. In general, let's see, let's just go through these, right? So these are the ones that we have now, but Zenyatta provides this function of high damage, of kind of this harmony of healing somebody, making sure somebody's a little bit more durable while one of their teammates is not, or one of their enemy mates,
is vulnerable.
Enemy team members is vulnerable, right? And then Mercy is kind of this thing where you're enabling your team and you're kind of like choosing her for the economy at this time, right? She's the one that's like, okay, our team's going to have more ults than you always. And we're going to make sure we get them faster every fight. Or we're going to make sure that this person is kind of a centerpiece, is super durable, super high damage, and we're going to put a lot of resources into this one or two things. And then on top of that, you have a little bit of a catch where, or a safety net. You can play her for a safety net for some of your backline heroes. Maybe you have a very strong backline that you want to protect. She can protect them even if they make mistakes. And then if we were to look at our main supports, like Ana, Baptiste, and Moira, they actually have some of these same functions. Ana has this function of enabling one teammate to do high destructive damage periodically and also get that ability in her ultimate very quickly. She also has the ability to shut down healing-based team compositions. And by that, like, if they have a lot of healing that they're just stacking up 2 main healers, for example, you just have the ability to just shut it down by saying, you don't get to heal for this time window, and we're going to punish it. Moira's kind of whole gimmick right now, like Andres said at the very top, is kind of the truest main support. She is full healing, full group healing, but her limitation is as a group. So you basically want to build her with a group that wants to go in and is constantly being durable, constantly being healed, super difficult to take down. And Moira is very slippery, so it's very hard to get rid of her. And also on top of that, she also has this little task of confirming targets that are super low when everyone's running out of ammo or reloading. She can kind of just provide that extra little bit of a kick. And Baptiste is a little bit of everything, to be honest. He has a lot of healing. He can hit you at range. He can shut entire offensives down with one cooldown. He can just say no for this amount of time until that little drone dies. Everyone's alive. And he also has the capability of providing a lot of pressure when he has his ultimate or even just his 3-shot burst in pretty much anywhere. He's very, very capable DPS to confirm targets, provide pressure, all that type of thing.
Right. Now, as you notice, as you go through all these healers, a lot of them provide utility, right? A lot of heroes that could be a main healer can also provide utility to the team and focus on that too. So I think that the best way about thinking about these roles, main healer and off healer, is not to separate the heroes that we have right now and not try to categorize them and be like, Baptiste is a main healer and Mercy is an off healer, because that is not always true. The best way to think about these instead is as the role that they're taking inside of your team, inside of that particular match and game that you're playing right there and right now. Because this is the thing, a lot of main healers, when you're thinking about the game itself and how it's played out, you have to make a very strategic decision between, are you damaging or are you healing? If you think about heroes like Ana or Baptiste or Mercy, all those heroes have to choose. You can't do both at the same time. You're either aiming at the hero and firing at them, or you're, with Mercy, pulling out your pistol and damaging them or damage boosting somebody in your team, or you're healing. With Baptiste is the same, with Ana is the same.
Absolutely.
And granted that they do have all this utility that they can bring to the team, and you could play them as the off healer. If your team decides, okay, your main healer is going to be Ana, then your role, for a fact, is going to be healing as much as you can.
The play style.
The play style, exactly. The mentality that you're approaching with that fight. You're okay, I'm the main healer. Now, sometimes you could run with two main healers, right? With that idea. It's not
Hmm.
necessarily that you have to have two. You can run with an Ana and a Baptiste. And here's the thing, both of them could play with the mentality of a main healer. Both of them could be prioritizing healing as much as they can and providing a ton of health for your team. And that's okay. That is a viable strategy. You could run with that, and you can
Exactly.
probably win matches like that. Sometimes you could run with a mix, one main healer and one off healer, right? You want somebody that's going to be concentrating on the heals and somebody who's going to be providing some support heals and spot heals, but is not going to be ultra concerned with that. If you notice, a lot of the off healers can actually heal and DPS at the same time. When you're thinking about Zenyatta, Lucio, Brigitte, a lot of their heals are either an aura around the hero or a sit and forget heal, right? With Zenyatta's orb, you put it on somebody else and you don't have to actively focus on it or actively keep that on the hero. As long as you have line of sight of that person, you're healing them, right? And then you can focus your attention on something else, on bringing the utility that you have somewhere else, right? Zenyatta can turn around and start damaging himself and put in Discord orbs, right? Lucio can be wall riding, booping people, and damaging himself while simultaneously healing his team. Now, these heroes do get penalized a little bit. You will heal a little bit less than some of your counterparts that have to focus entirely all their attention into healing. The output of Ana of healing is much higher than that of Lucio, but it's because of that kind of difference in how they approach their healing, right? One of them can do it while doing other things. The other one has to dedicate all of their attention into healing. Does that make sense?
I think that it does for me. And if you guys have more questions, feel free to talk about it with friends on our Discord as well as us. You can just tag us when you're able, and hopefully we can get to your questions. We did have a question in the live show for someone that's here talking about what is the most effective type of healing, which is the difference between single target, area of effect, or beam, close range, or projectile, stuff like that. So I want to kind of backtrack the question by asking, why do we need to have a most effective style when we have so many different heroes in the roster? Because right now, it kind of determines what is the most effective by what you're playing. It's not what is the most effective across the board, but what is the most effective with my team and against the enemy team. Because I will say that of all of the heroes in the game, the support heroes are kind of the most dependent on what your team is playing rather than what the enemy team is playing in at large. Now, I'm not saying that what the enemy team is playing should be ignored for what supports you're playing, because there are many times that I'll see what the enemy team is playing and saying, this is just not working, even though this is our game plan. I needed to make an adjustment. Like what Andres is saying, I need to run another main support because we're just not able to do it. It has to, that at that point, it comes down to maybe even just the ability of your teammates rather than what heroes they picked at that point.
Yeah, actually, now we're getting into the right questions that we should be
Yeah.
asking ourselves. Like now that we've defined what a main healer and what an off healer is, what do we bring and who is a main healer in what situations? Again, it's not a healthy thing to categorize a hero and just say like this guy is only a main healer, because like you said, Rob, it really depends is on what the enemy team is playing and what your team is trying to accomplish. Let's talk about Mercy, because I think she's an awesome example of how a healer can be both, be a main healer and also be an off healer. Mercy can fill both roles, and it really depends is on what your team is trying to accomplish. For example, in the meta that we have currently right now, in the bunker, double shield, Sigma, and Orisa meta, Mercy doesn't fit as a main healer in this meta because of the way that it's played. It's huge amounts of burst damage with Reaper, Doomfist, Sigma, Orisa 2, and her supercharger. Just so much damage in your face, and it's basically a clash of the titans where each other's trying to break their bunker or just plow through the bunker and kill somebody as much as possible, to the point where Mercy, her style of healing falls short a little bit. She honestly can't output enough healing to keep somebody alive through a Reaper. You can be channeling your heal on Orisa nonstop. That Reaper,
And
if
that's not be enough.
yeah, if he's on the Orisa, it's game over. If you're getting your headshots and you're hitting her real good, even through the dancing of the shield, a good Reaper can time it right. You will still kill her over those heals. So just bringing her Mercy alone is just not enough as a main healer in this meta. You need somebody who can really pump out a lot of heals, maybe some burst heals, like Moira, for example. She can throw her orb, she can be pumping, her spray, get a coalescence incredibly fast because of all the damage that's coming in, and then pumping even more heals into this insane amount of damage that is coming in. So she actually fits really well. Baptiste as well. You have Immortality Field. You can just fire at the ground and basically build your defense matrix, which again is a huge amount of burst healing if you need it. So he fits in this meta as well. And I can get away with it. She has a lot of healing capabilities. She has the nade and a lot of other tools. So you can fit her in there as well. But now let's go into a different kind of meta before we close this example. Let's go into dive. Dive is a composition that is incredibly mobile and doesn't take that much damage. In fact, a big part of the art of dive is knowing how to sneak into your opponent, jump them, and get out alive. Characters like Tracer, Genji, Diva, and Winston tend to be a little bit self-sufficient and can kind of get out of situations on their own. And you need more of a healer that can keep up with those heroes and keep up with their mobility. And because they're not taking as much damage, you really don't need somebody who can output an insane amount of heals. You need somebody who can output a consistent amount of, just enough heals and can keep up with your movement. In this type of meta, Mercy actually becomes really appealing as a main healer, and she can take the role of main heals because it's enough just having her to keep everyone healthy enough and alive throughout the entire fight. So you see kind of how different metas can change the role that you're playing.
And to me, the most interesting thing is when you have a team that is running this dive historically, sometimes you will even see dive compositions not even run a main healer in the traditional sense. They just run two healers on the off or the support role to enable the team to do what they do even better. So their time to kill is like instant practically. Yeah. And so what happens is you trade 2 kills before you lose 1, or you trade 2 or 3 kills and you don't lose anyone.
In the dive meta for a while, Lucio was considered a main healer
Lucio
as
and
well.
Zenyatta.
Yeah, Zenyatta was kind of like the off healer. But yeah, Lucio was your main healer. He was basically in charge of healing most of your team, again, because a lot of them were not taking as much damage in that time. Exactly. And sometimes it was dive versus dive too, so even less damage taken, right? It was very just calculated bursts and try to burst someone down. Maybe let's talk about another example.
There's one thing that we can talk about though, which is the style of ultimates that a hero has in the support category. Offensive versus defensive. This is a big selling point for why you choose what you choose when you set up a team roster. Because not all of the offense heroes traditionally will have any form of defensive ult. Some of the tanks might have a defensive ult, but not really the DPS. It's a lot more in the niche category, I guess you could say, the DPS to have a defensive style ult.
Mm-hmm.
But in the support category, kind of historically up until this point, in general, one of the two supports needs to have what you would qualify as a defensive support, some defensive ultimate, that you can use reactively instead of proactively to get into the fight. Defensive ultimates in this category would be qualified as Drop the Beat, Sound Barrier for Lucio, Zenyatta's Transcendence. These are defensive ultimates. Mercy's ultimate before, when it was just the 5-player res, was, I guess, qualified as a defensive ult, meaning you do whatever the heck you want and then you don't get punished because you have a res. The newer one is more of an offensive ultimate, very similar to the same kind of style as Orisa, but it's a little bit more mobility focused. You can have an Orisa ultimate on the go. And then Ana is full offensive, but since they gave it the ability to do a chunk of healing, it now has kind of a dual purpose kind of a durability defensive thing that can happen. But traditionally and currently, the focus of the ultimate is to get the value out of the damage and the healing together. Kind of flipping the fight is kind of what she does. So it's a defensive offensive moment that is can be reactive but can be proactive. And
Absolutely.
Baptiste has a cooldown that's defensive but an offensive ultimate. So, and Moira again kind of is in this different category where everything she does is geared to do one thing insanely well, which is healing people that she can touch with her heals. Like everything she has is just insane at keeping people alive.
And I think with ultimates, just like healing, you're really basing your pick is in what you're seeing, especially what the enemy team is playing. Sometimes you can pick certain heroes based on what your team is playing. Like for example, if you're playing with a badass Genji and you're a really good Ana, you can be picking that combo in order to nano blade, for example. You know that that is a very solid combo. As long as you're executing it right, you know you can win a lot of fights with that type of composition. Other times, you might be thinking, okay, my team is playing very meta right now, right? They're playing into that double shield. The enemy team is also playing very meta right now. So maybe Moira is a better choice, right? Her ultimate just goes through barriers. She can output so much heals. She can play really aggressively, so she can play to the playstyle of your team and also against the playstyle of the enemy team. If the enemy team is playing with a badass Genji that is getting nano bladed, maybe you should think about an ultimate that can save you from that, right? A Transcendence or a Lucio drop the beat. So you thinking about supports has to be a balance between what is going to be the most effective heals that I can bring to my team, right? Do I have a main healer, somebody that is concerned with keeping everyone alive, and is that main healer a choice that makes sense, right? Is it actually going to be able to keep my team alive through the damage that the enemy team is putting, whatever that may be? And if we already have that, can I pick an off healer maybe that is complementing what we already have? For example, in this current meta, Lucio is an incredible off healer because he brings a ton of utility to the team. He can boop Doomfist and Reaper out of position so that they're not threatening your frontline, your Orisa and your Sigma. He can drop the beat when, you know, things are getting tight and somebody's going to die, right? Maybe when Sigma uses his Symphony, drop the beat is an incredible counter because you can still use it while you're above in the air, suspended, and kind of save your entire team if they get caught, maybe by surprise. So it's a fine balancing act of choosing what you're going up against and what you
Right.
have to work with.
You definitely end up choosing heroes to specifically counter something on the enemy team. Like we mentioned before that sometimes you don't do that, but sometimes you do, where you're like, okay, this team's going to play Genji or they're playing Genji. Like Andres was saying, we're going to use that illustration again. And they've got the Ana Genji combo, and that kills us every stinking time. And then you look at what supports you're running, and maybe you're running a Moira and a Baptiste, or a Moira and I don't know,
That's
something that
that's
doesn't
good.
have. But like at
More
that
and Mercy,
point,
for example. That would
yeah,
be a
for example,
combo
yeah,
that has
Moira Mercy.
no answer to that, right?
You have nothing that you can do reactively to protect your team. Whereas if you had a Zenyatta, the Genji might be farming him most of the time if he's not playing very well, but he or she's not playing very well. But if the Zenyatta can come around to that key moment when the blade happens and you've got transcendence for it, you hear, Ryuge Genji's blade, I'm gonna kill you, the sound bite. And you have Zenyatta just hits, experience tranquility. That fight is effectively nullified by two people hitting Q, because there's nothing that he can do to kill your team through transcendence, unless even with Nano Blade, he has to basically have a perfect dash swipe at the exact moment to kill certain targets in a certain health threshold, even with Nano to do it. And the other one would be drop the beat with, or I always say the voice line, but sound barrier from Lucio is effective because you can just be around and just hit it. And you can even use it proactively if you need to.
Now, maybe to close out this discussion, we can maybe go through each of the healers that we have right now, and we can point out their strengths and some of their weaknesses, and maybe why you would bring that hero into your team. How about that?
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's start with Mercy. Mercy's a very versatile hero. Mercy's your bread and butter kind of hero. The best thing about Mercy is how consistent her heals are. With Mercy, you don't have to worry about aiming your heals. You don't have to be worried about too much where your team is positioned, because you can catch up to them very easily. You don't have restrictions of verticality. You can reach anyone who's up there. You can be very mobile in that sense. So she's a very reliable hero. She's a hero that can be easy to get into if you're just getting into the support role. Is one of the best supports to start with, to kind of start getting the mentality of healing, because you can actually focus on just supporting your team right off the gate. You don't have to learn about a lot about positioning. You don't have to learn a lot about aim or mechanics. You can just start doing your role right away with Mercy. Now, Mercy does have a lot of depth, and you can actually get a lot of juice out of Mercy if you spend your time and your hours on her. She has a lot of advanced tactics that good Mercies will be leave you in awe, basically, on what how they're doing it and how hard they are to kill and how much value they're bringing into their team. But I think that that is one of her best advantages, is how consistent she can be in almost every situation. Do you want to add
And
anything to
she's
her?
self-sustainable.
And she's very
That's the
self-sustainable.
biggest thing. She can sustain herself. You basically say, look, I'm under threat. I can jump away and wait, and you get healed. That's really powerful in
You'll
Overwatch.
heal yourself, yeah.
Really powerful. And then the other thing that she's got is the big cover up, and say, okay, my friend died and he was in a decent spot while we're pushing in. I can just bring him back, bring that player back. I'm good to go.
Yeah, she also has two modes. She can support by healing and she can support by damage boosting. So you do have an option with her. If you don't necessarily have to heal, you can support your team in other ways by increasing their damage and setting them up. That's why she goes so well with Pharah, for example. She can match Pharah's mobility and even increase and amplify the huge damage that she already puts out. So huge pair for her, for example. Let's move on to Anna. Anna is another really popular hero. You want to start with this one?
Yeah, so Anna, the one thing you pick Anna for is the capability of enabling a teammate and denying heals. Those are her two things that she does really well. Similar to Mercy, Mercy is all about enabling a teammate at any given time. Whether that teammate's dead or alive doesn't matter, because you can just pick another one, right? Same thing with Anna. Anna's whole thing is about enabling a teammate, maintaining the health bars of your entire team, and enabling them with your ultimate. Then you also defensively can shut down stuff that when you get into trouble. You can turn a high pressure situation that you're under into a kill confirm with landing one dart. And on top of that, you also have a offensive ability that can be defensive with a grenade. You can use grenades frequently to rescue people, rescue zones of teammates, and also use it offensively to deny enemy heals and enable your teammates to kill them. And shutting down opportunities that the enemy team may have by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the biggest difference in understanding this Ana versus Masters and above and GMs and top 500 and Overwatch League Anas is the Anas there will be min-maxing that grenade to do both functions every time it's being thrown, or offensively it's going to be kill confirming every single time it's being thrown. And what I mean by that is when you use the grenade, you want to be able to get some kind of buff on an ally so that you can heal them throughout that fight at a higher rate. And then also shutting down heals on an enemy at the same mode with one grenade is incredibly game flipping. And then going into the ultimate is this kind of that same function. You basically enable a large health target. If you wanted to use Reinhardt, for example, the Reinhardt can go in, play super aggressive, and then you can just tag him, bring him up 200 hit points, and give him way more damage than he had when he first got there. So now that he's in the fray, now that he's started the damage, he's gonna finish it. And the other side of it would be it pairs super well on the back of any other ultimate that's offensively minded. We already mentioned Genji ad nauseum, and we don't really need to mention it again, but any type of stun, any type of high damage thing like McCree's ramp up damage to do his burst thing, if you hit him and then he jumps in and uses that ramp damage time is way faster. Stuff with Soldier Ultimate as well. I think I think you can nano Bob if you really wanted to, but that's not really a popular thing right now. You can nano any projectile ultimate. I think Pharah's one of the big ones that you can nano Pharah's, and it's crazy damage, stuff like that.
Yeah, Anna to me, it strikes me as the opposite of Mercy when you're trying to get into that support role. Well,
Right.
Mercy is very straightforward and very easy to get into. Anna is the complete opposite, in my opinion. She requires such a refined skill set to really get the most out of, but it's very rewarding if you're able to develop those skills. She does rely a lot on positioning, she relies a lot on accuracy and your mechanics, she relies a lot on timing and reading the game and being able to land very specific abilities that are hard to land on very specific targets at the right time, like her sleep darts and her nades. Like you mentioned, Rob, she can create a lot of opportunity with those tools. Um, but that being said, somebody who's able to master all of these things, Anna is one of the most versatile heroes in the entire game. She can do so much for your team that I would say she is one of the true carry heroes in Overwatch. And I'm putting it out her with DPS and some tanks. She can carry the game by herself because of the amount of utility that she can bring to the team. She can output an insane amount of heals. Um, she can heal an entire fight just by herself. If you're good enough and you can aim really good and keep track of who's getting damage and appropriately distribute your heals, your grenade is an incredible offensive ability as well as defensive ability that can turn the tide of battle at any point. Your sleep dart can be game changing. You can sleep certain targets that are meaningless, but you can also sleep a Blading Genji, a Primal Raging Winston, and again, turn the tide of battle completely around. So, a hero with a ton of potential, but also a very high skill floor. So, this one really is for somebody who wants to take the time and dedicate a lot of time into the support category and this hero in particular, because there's a lot of nuance to it.
Okay, let's hit up Brigitte next. Brigitte to me is more often selected for the answer rather than for the static team that you're playing. A lot of times when I play Brigitte, it's in response to something that's going on currently. It's this thing is coming in, it's a problem, I need to stun it, we need to kill it, or I just want to make our team much more brawly. Brigitte currently pairs really well with Moira if you can handle it and your team is very brawly focused. It's kind of that format. There's not a whole lot of other heroes that I really like playing her alongside outside of maybe Baptiste. I think you could probably run it right now. But again, you have to remember where she thrived prior was with way higher healing and armor gain, way higher, and also with on the back of two other supports was why she was powerful and removing the DPS entirely. So the other thing that you want to look at when this hero is strong in a meta is whether or not that team is going to be able to stay alive, be fighting, and also be able to trigger your inspire trait. You're able to hit things consistently. Whether it's low or high damage is kind of irrelevant for the DPS side, but it's the triggers, the amount of times you can hit inspire on yourself and your teammates over and over and over again, making sure you're just basically always healing. And then you can kind of use the armor packs as needed. And the inspire will get you to the point where you can use your ultimate, which is kind of the armor gain for the entire team. Those are the kind of the situations I find currently that I'm using Brigitte, which is honestly not a whole lot, but I feel like, given a couple more months, maybe a year, new heroes kind of come into the fray, more melee based comps, more brawly focused things outside of barriers. This could be a pretty dangerous hero again.
Yeah, I think that you're right. She is kind of a niche healer right now, and she fits a really nice category that she makes her backline really strong. She can make her backline or frontline a little stronger as well. I think she's a deterrent for a lot of heroes to just straight up go into your backline. We don't have a lot of those right now, aside from like Reaper and Doomfist, which she actually can be quite effective against. You know, a Reaper has to watch his back when there's a Brigitte because he can't Death Blossom freely. He can get interrupted before he goes into his Wraith form, or teleport out. You know, that stun is something that he watches out for. He's already scared of Flashbang. The shield is no different. Same with Doomfist. And her Flail is another really strong boop, probably the strongest boop in the game, more than Lucio. And it's very
There's way more
reliable.
knockback.
Yeah, at this point. So again, against those heroes, she can really do some work, especially if you're a good Brigitte that knows what to look out for.
I usually pick her against Tracers and Genjis though, but Doomfist and Reaper are definitely options that you can shut down if you
even
do it
even
properly.
against Mei, for example, Mei wants to get up close to your healers, and that stun again, that boop, can really keep her at bay. And it's a 4-second cooldown, so you can really just pick a hero and make their life miserable and be like, you're not ever getting close. Um, But yeah, a little bit
Bodyguard.
niche.
Think
And
bodyguard.
I think of her as a very off healer right now, right? Her heals, I don't think
Hmm.
are big enough to just heal an entire team by herself, unless you're playing with very flimsy heroes. But again, the very flimsy heroes normally don't want to play the style that Brigitte wants to play. They're not very static. They don't want to hold a position and hold that ground, that zone. They want to be more scattered and free and hard to shoot. Um,
Right.
so yeah, right now she's kind of in a rough spot meta wise. Baptiste, want to talk about Baptiste?
Yeah, Baptiste is kind of a fun one to think of right now because he is one of the few heroes that can fill. I think he actually is the only hero that can fill a main support role and also function as a extra for barrier damage in a barrier bunker meta that we're currently in. He's really, really good at providing extra damage. If you min max it and kind of learn the pace with his heals, you can heal fire, heal fire, heal fire. You can kind of do that kind of pacing with your secondary fire to heal, your primary fire to burst. You can use the immortality field to shut down mistakes. You can use the immortality field to enable movement. You can use it to save yourself and rescue. You can also use your kind of your area of effect. I can never remember it. It's always the one where he uses his wristband in the animation.
Yeah,
It's like
his
a healing aura.
regeneration or something.
Regeneration, that's it. Yeah. Or rejuvenation, one of those two
Rejuvenation.
words.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
that's World
it's
of
something like
Warcraft.
that. Something a nation. I'm playing too much WoW.
Yeah, Baptiste strikes me as a very similar hero like Anna. Very high skill floor. You can be very effective with him. The better your mechanics, the better your positioning, the better your reading of
Yeah.
the game is. And he can really fill both roles. Very versatile. He can be main healer. He can be an off healer. He brings a lot of tools. He brings a lot of damage himself. If you're good with your aim, I think that in the power level of schemes, I think that Anna is just a little bit better than him
Yeah.
because of the nade and the short cooldown of the nade, and the insane potential of the sleep dart as well versus the
Hmm.
rejuvenation. But that being said, Baptiste is right under her. You can also carry certain fights with Baptiste. You can keep a lot of people alive with your heals and your immortality field if you're using it properly. And you can get a lot of kills yourself with your ultimate and your regular fire. Your primary fire actually can hit very hard if you can get those headshots in there.
Yeah, he's really, really fun to play too. like
Yeah, he's
like
actually
he's
really fun
very,
to
very
play.
rewarding.
And he's not as immobile as Anna. So he does have a
Yeah,
lot
you
of
do have that jump.
verticality, which actually allows Baptiste to play certain styles that Anna cannot even dream about playing. Maybe
He has a
only
lot
with
of unique
Asymmetra.
playmaker settings that you can kind of do with high ground and jumping, as well as setting up your I always call it square, but it's the amplification matrix. It's like the
Yeah,
longest name for
yeah,
an
yeah,
ability
yeah.
that you could just use say one one syllable.
And because he
So
does have access to verticality unlike Anna, and he has it on demand, the compositions that he can play in are a little bit broader.
yeah.
The play styles that he can play in are a little bit different than Anna can. Even though Anna's kind of a sniper, she sort of has to pick her position very carefully, sometimes to be able to heal at range. Baptiste can be a little bit more aggressive and be like, I'll actually go up there with you guys and hang out there with you guys. I have the tools to be up here.
Yeah, he's a really fun hero to kind of figure out, and I'm glad that work through steadily to kind of figure this hero out. He didn't kind of get the same treatment that a lot of other heroes got, where it's like this hero's super broken or this hero's really weak, and then you kind of go through patch changes for the next couple months. Baptiste is one of the ones that kind of hit the servers. People are super interested, not quite sure what to do with this hero, kind of still trying him in pretty much any comp when they can to kind of work him in, and they kind of hit him right out of the park, I'd say, like for any of the heroes
Yeah,
besides with
he's
balance.
actually a
He's
really,
really
really
good.
nice hero, really fun to play. Let's go through the last three a little bit faster because we
Sure.
are running a little bit out of time.
We
Moira,
are.
I think, is one of the more simple supports to understand. She is really centered on an incredible amount of burst healing. She can output so much healing, but the caveat with her is that she has a short range and a very limited range in which she can do it. Um, she doesn't have ways to reach heroes that are on the other side of the map, like
Or barriers.
Zenyatta, like Anna, like even Baptiste can do it, right? She's very confined to heroes that are basically in front of her, and even the tools that she has, like her healing orb, are very one directional. So you have to make sure that you're throwing it at somebody that is gonna reach, or you might end up wasting your entire cooldown. That being said,
Right.
out of raw healing, right now she's putting out some insane numbers, and in the right compositions, she can really put the most amount of healing out of every hero right now, especially because her heals can go through barriers with coalescence. She can play a very aggressive playstyle with her fade. And with her self heal as she's damaging. And her damage is very spammy in the sense that it works really well when the fight and the brawl breaks loose, as well as her healing. And AoE healing, man, one of the best heroes to heal a team that is playing close together.
It's really also great in combination with Zarya's and Reinhardt's moving in together with a team of Reapers and Doomfists and stuff like that. The kind of stuff that you're going to be seeing. It's like, okay, this team's going to sit down in the bunker. Great. We're going to go to them. We're going to heal, and we're not going to die. And we're going to run a Moira with us. And by the time that you add up all of the extra damage, putting Moira's damage noodle, I guess I like to call it, her little biotic grasp where she's sucking energy back into her healing beam, it's just like it all adds up. It's not even that it's good. It's just like at that point it's adding up to a certain realm of critical mass, and if you just need a little bit more, she's there for it. She's got it. And you can even throw a damage orb if you need to, and you're not really taking as much damage going in, just using your primary heal, throwing the damage orb, using your biotic grasp to get some of your healing juice back. And then on top of that, it's kind of the same format when you use your healing Kamehameha, your coalescence. You blast your whole team while they're going in. You don't have to be with them. You can be safe doing it. And then if the enemy team happens to be near who you're trying to heal, they are also taking, again, that kind of stacking extra damage up. You're not really using it offensively. You're kind of just using it to kind of pressure a position and say, look, we're going to stand here and you're not. Because it's really, really like an interesting style of zoning tool. But beyond that, it's just pure healing is kind of her thing. And no one else is going to be touching her with regards to how much they can do.
Let's bring up Lucio. Lucio is a very interesting hero. Just like Mercy, I think that Lucio is very easy to start bringing value into your team because a lot of your abilities are just require you to just sort of be around your team, right? Your healing aura, your speed aura, as long as you're playing with your team, you're providing value with them. So a really easy hero to jump into first. If you're just learning the support role, you're just learning the game. I think Lucio and Mercy are great starting support heroes. But just like Mercy, Lucio has a steep learning curve, and you can actually get a lot of juice out of Lucio and look very impressive with a hero and do a lot of plays that some other heroes can't do. The speed enables your team in certain ways that some other sports can never dream about doing. If you're trying to play with a team that maybe lacks a little bit of mobility, but it wants to play up really close and wants to close the gap, and the key here is they want to close the gap because sometimes you can play with a team that has very low mobility but has no intention of closing the gap. Whereas maybe a very static bunker, or you're trying to hold the high ground or stuff like that, the speed might not be as important. But for the most part, if you're trying to move around quickly in the map and you have those heroes that lack mobility or heroes that already have mobility but could use even extra, Lucio really shines there. And you can really keep up with the heroes that have the highest mobility in the game as long as you master the art of the wall ride. There's a caveat here. It takes a while to learn. I think that it has a lot of depth, and it's something you can practice for a long time and still get better. But once you can learn how to wall ride, you almost become like a Genji.
It is a very unique style of movement that is worth the time and effort to put in to figure it out, because it's almost a direct correlation with learning how to position properly with Lucio is how to wall ride properly. And
Absolutely.
that speed is no joke. The only hero that can grant speed is Lucio. And so it's if you're planning to main support, not just be a main support, but mains the support category, this is one of the heroes you got to put into your roster at some point to put some hours in and
Yeah,
figure
it's
it
a
out.
fantastic hero. Brings a lot of utility. The boops can be really strong to set up your team or to keep the enemy at
Very
bay
offensive
and
hero.
not let them get into it. You can get a lot of environmental kills. One of the best heroes at getting environmental kills because the boop is so reliable, especially if you can pair it with really masterful wall riding. You can really go far with a hero. And he has a lot of burst damage. We mentioned that he can get some in some positions that some other healers can get. And sometimes he's very hard to see, right? Because he's wall riding
He's
and
just
it's just
in weird places
he's
that you
really,
don't look
yeah,
for
really
normally.
awkward positions that, yeah, is they're not normal. So you can really sneak on people, boop him, and you can headshot with him as well. And that triple fire that he does can actually add a lot of damage if you have the skill, or four. Sorry, yeah, you can get 4 shots on them, and if you get those 4 shots in the head, woo! And now we're cooking with fire.
The crazy combo is speed boost out of spawn, jump the widow, 1, 2, 3, 4, boop punch, they're dead. Like, because the boop and the punch can kind of share the same section of impact, so you can hit the boop on your melee ability and just burst the crap out of targets.
Yeah,
It's like a
great.
Genji dash plus a shurikens, man. It's a lot of damage.
It's a great hero for contesting and for stalling as well. Very
Yeah.
slippery, and because of your rollouts that you can do, if you learn how to wall right out of spawn really quickly, you can actually get to the point in the clutch time, right? In overtime or right
Exactly.
before they cap it, and then you can be kind of squishy. So one of the best supports for those like last minute attempts as well.
And our last hero to round it out is Zenyatta, the hero of Harmony, the one, the only single target focused support, I would say,
The
that
glass
that
cannon,
you
I like calling him.
that you have to sit on. Yeah. The one that is the most crazy position heavy, one of the best heroes to kind of just sit on, and if you can handle the frustration of learning this hero, it's really, really good for kind of all tiers of play. I found that the better I got at Zenyatta, the better at Overwatch I got, because you don't have any catches. You don't have any fail safes. It's literally if you're there and you're not playing good enough and they catch you by surprise and you can't kill them, you're dead. Like, he's very much like you have to know where you are, where they are, and you have to know the game and the cooldowns in order to perform it at its optimal level. And your only get out of jail free card is your ultimate, and people yell at you if you use it poorly. So,
Yeah, Zenyatta
making sure you know what you're doing
is
is the
another high
key on
skill
Zen.
support, I would say. It takes a while to learn him. It's very position reliant, um, very low health. So like you said, it's easy to punish, and you learn a lot about the game quickly if you're playing Zenyatta because you will be dying a lot. That being
Yeah,
said, Zenyatta out of all the supports can bring an insane amount of damage to your entire team throughout the entire
right.
match, both in the sense of him firing and dealing a lot of damage himself, and Discord Orb, because you have to realize that Discord Orb not only affects Zenyatta, but affects everyone else's damage. So he amplifies everyone else's damage against a target that is discorded. So very good for singling out targets or for bringing that extra damage. If you feel like you're lacking a little bit of oomph and you need something else, maybe your DPS are not enough at the moment, not because maybe they're not doing their job, but because you literally maybe need more damage. Maybe they're playing uh, something with a lot of health or a lot of healing and need to plow through all of that. Zenyatta might be a good idea. Again, his ultimate is also really powerful. It counters a lot of ultimates in the game. So it's a hero that can bring a lot of utility as well. And you don't necessarily bring him for the insane amount of heals that he can do, although he can put out a very significant amount of heal, especially with Transcendence. You're bringing him more for that powerhouse, right? A very skilled Zenyatta can bring a lot of power into your team, like we've seen with Jonak in New York Excelsior, for example. And he has one of the coolest perks that sometimes people don't talk about, but he is the only silent hero. He doesn't make any sounds when he walks. And even though you might not think that is a big deal, it's a perk that gets better and better as you climb up the ranks. Once people really start relying on sound to detect where you are, Zenyatta is one of the heroes that can do the sneakiest flanks. And sometimes you'll see very good Zenyatas do this because you can sneak up on people and they will have no idea that you're there. So I don't know. You can be very sneaky with Zen. Something that I find quite funny.
One of my favorite things to do with that particular thing, Andres, is when I catch somebody taking a flank on the enemy team and I cut them off mid flank and I have a fully charged volley waiting for them and they come around the corner is the greatest feeling because they think you're spamming a corner into the enemy team and that you don't anticipate they're there, and then you walk into where they're flanking and you shoot them with four or five orbs and they're dead and you're like, oh yeah,
Watch out for those flanking Zens.
Yep. Well, I think that's going to round it out for the show, you guys and gals out there. Thank you so much for listening to us. Again, another plea for you guys to check out our Patreon. We kind of a weird year, but we're really, really excited about this coaching thing. So if it's more your speed, you want to do coaching, great. If not, give us some feedback. If you're a Patreon, if you're not a Patreon, talk to us. What is it that you're looking to do with your creators and why you would support them? Let us know that we can do on the show that you would be super interested in hearing. That's just the podcast feedback in general outside of the Patreon. We'd love to hear your feedback. And speaking of which, we have one iTunes review this week coming in from Gaindolf, which is a great way of saying that your gains in ranked. Gaindolf on the US says, awesome podcast to get you to think more about how to play competitively. The more recent Know Your Role podcasts are huge. Thanks for the content, fellas. Great, because we just finished it today. So thank you for your iTunes review. We really, really appreciate it. If you guys want to support us for free, besides listening, you can head over to iTunes and do that. And just one more side note, we were talking in the pre-show today and last week about why we're not really showing up in Google Play or Google Music, and also having some issues with Stitcher. We've had issues with Stitcher for a long, long time. But I think this week we're going to try to see what we can do to reach out to Libsyn, see if Libsyn can help us connect with a few dots and figure some things out. If you guys don't have the show on your podcasting feed, highly recommend getting Pocket Casts on the Android and iTunes App Store. It is paid. There's also another one called Overcast. Those two are the two most recommended ones that I have for people listening to podcasts in general, because the other ones just traditionally have had issues. But yeah, those are the two places if you want to find the show. Andres, where can people find you on the interwebs? And then why don't you thank the Diamond sponsors and new patrons this week before you do that?
Absolutely. Thanks everyone who's supporting us on Patreon. For that, we'll get Refire, Shazir, Shepherd, Crimson Fail, Chris the Play, A Tragic Sack, and Darren W. Thank you so much for your support. We got a new patron today, Aaron. Thanks for joining. Love the support, and I really appreciate the vote of confidence. We got in so many patrons for the coaching sessions as well, so it makes us think that you guys are really interested. I know we had a lot of emails this week, and I wasn't able to get to them till the end of the week as we were both really busy. But I think I got through all of them. If I haven't gotten to you, please forgive us. We do have a lot of stuff going on sometimes, and we have like 3 different sources with those come in. So sometimes we might miss one. If we did, just send us a message back, and we guarantee we'll get back to you. But I think I got back to everyone today. So hopefully that's it. That being said, you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games.
You want to find me? I am on Twitter and Instagram with the tag NotRob. You can find Andres and I playing Warcraft Classic occasionally. If you wanted to talk about that, we love talking about WoW Classic. It's fun. And I think besides that, the other cool thing that's happened this week is the new Zelda. Link's Awakening is now out.
I saw that.
Switch.
Looks cool.
If you want to go check that out. I might be needing to get a new memory card so I can download it because my memory card is full. If you guys are looking forward to game night, I know I am. We'll see you guys Friday, and hopefully we can see you then. Give us some love on the Discord. If you want to tell us anything about your games, we're always willing to hear about it. And remember, don't be a lab rat, be a scientist. We'll see you guys next week, and enjoy your game night.
have nothing more to teach you. The rest you must